He poisoned my puppy because the dog barked once at a squirrel, and I watched Charlie die in my arms at the emergency vet while this monster laughed about it. But what this puppy killer didn't know was that I had security camera footage of everything. And what he really didn't know was that killing a widow's therapy dog doesn't just get you arrested, it gets you 7 years in prison, a lifetime registry as an animal abuser, and a life so destroyed you'll wish you'd never been born. Hey everyone, it's Grandma, and I need to warn you right now, this story is going to absolutely wreck you emotionally. We're talking about a widow, a therapy puppy, senseless cruelty, and revenge so complete that it changed state law. Before we get into this, I need you to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because stories like this need to be heard. And when we get to the end, I want every single one of you to comment the word Charlie to honor this puppy and every animal that's been hurt by monsters. Your comments tell me you care. Alright, let's talk about Rose, Charlie, and the day a man decided cruelty was acceptable. This story is about a 74-year-old woman named Rose, a widow. Her husband died 2 years before this story begins. 52 years of marriage, and then he was gone. Heart attack, sudden, no warning, one day. They were planning their retirement cruise. The next day Rose was planning his funeral. The grief nearly killed her. I mean that literally. Rose stopped eating, stopped leaving the house except for absolute necessities, stopped answering phone calls from friends. She'd sit in the house she'd shared with her husband for half a century, surrounded by his things, his smell fading from his clothes, and she'd think about dying, about how much easier it would be to just stop. Her daughter forced her to see a therapist. The therapist, after weeks of sessions, made a suggestion: get a dog, something to care for, something that needs you, something that will give you a reason to get out of bed. Rose didn't want a dog. She didn't want anything, but her daughter was persistent. So Rose went to the shelter, mostly to get everyone to stop bothering her. And that's where she met Charlie, a 10-week-old golden retriever puppy with the softest fur and the biggest brown eyes you've ever seen. He crawled into her lap and fell asleep. And for the first time in 2 years, Rose smiled. She took Charlie home, and everything changed. Charlie needed her. Needed to be fed, trained, walked, played with. Rose couldn't stay in bed all day when Charlie needed to go outside. She couldn't skip meals when Charlie needed his kibble measured out. She started walking him around the neighborhood. Neighbors who hadn't seen her in months would stop and chat. "What a beautiful puppy," they'd say. And Rose would feel something she thought was gone forever: joy. Charlie slept in her bed, curled up next to her. On the nights when Rose cried looking at photos of her husband, Charlie would put his head on her chest and just be there. He didn't judge, didn't try to fix anything, just loved her unconditionally. Rose told him one night, holding his puppy face in her hands, "You saved my life, little guy. You gave me a reason to keep going." Charlie was 12 weeks old when it happened. Rose had a fenced backyard, small but secure, or so she thought. She'd let Charlie out for supervised playtime. She never left him alone. She was too worried about him, and she'd sit on the porch watching him explore, chase butterflies, dig little holes in the grass. On this particular morning, a squirrel ran along the top of the fence. Charlie saw it and did what puppies do. He barked once, one single bark. Not aggressive, not prolonged. Just an excited puppy bark because there was a squirrel, and it was the most exciting thing ever. Rose's neighbor Derek, 32 years old, worked in tech, thought the world revolved around him, heard that one bark and lost his mind. He'd complained before about noise even though Charlie barely barked. Derek hated dogs, hated animals in general, thought people who had pets were idiots wasting money on animals. Derek looked over the fence at Charlie playing innocently in the grass, and he made a decision that would destroy multiple lives, including his own. He went into his garage and got antifreeze. Do you know what antifreeze does to dogs? It tastes sweet to them. They drink it willingly, and then it destroys their kidneys, causes seizures, and kills them slowly and painfully. It's one of the cruelest ways to poison an animal. Derek soaked pieces of meat in antifreeze and threw them over the fence. And this is what makes him a true monster. He watched as Charlie, a 12-week-old puppy who'd never hurt anyone, ate the poisoned meat, and Derek laughed. Rose was inside getting her coffee when she heard Charlie making a weird sound. She ran outside and found him seizing, his little body convulsing, foam coming from his mouth, his eyes rolling back. She screamed, scooped him up and ran to her car, drove 90 miles an hour to the emergency vet with Charlie dying in the passenger seat. The emergency vet tried everything, pumped his stomach, started IVs, gave him every medication they had. $8,000 in emergency care, trying desperately to save this puppy's life. Rose didn't care about the cost. She sobbed in the waiting room, begging God, begging her dead husband, begging anyone who would listen to save Charlie. He died anyway. The vet came out after 3 hours with tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry. There was too much poison. We couldn't save him. Charlie died in Rose's arms. She held his little body and felt her heart shatter into pieces. The vet had to call for help because Rose collapsed. Literally collapsed. Grief-induced heart attack. She almost died right there in the veterinary hospital from a broken heart. Rose spent 2 days in the human hospital, cardiac monitoring, psych evaluation because she told the nurses she wanted to die. When she finally went home, the house was silent. Charlie's toys were scattered on the floor. His food bowl still had kibble in it. His bed still had his puppy smell. Rose picked up his favorite toy, a little stuffed duck, and she broke down completely. She told her daughter later that she'd gotten out the bottle of sleeping pills her doctor had prescribed after her husband died. She'd sat there holding the bottle, thinking about how easy it would be, how she could just go to sleep and be with her husband and Charlie and not feel this pain anymore. She called the suicide hotline instead, sobbing so hard she could barely speak. I just want to be with my husband and my puppy. I can't do this anymore. I can't. The counselor talked her down, got her to promise to call her daughter, to not be alone that night. Rose survived, but barely. The light that Charlie had brought back into her life was gone, and the darkness was suffocating. But while Rose was fighting to stay alive, someone else was fighting to get her justice. The emergency vet who'd tried to save Charlie, her name was Dr. Jessica, suspected poisoning immediately. The symptoms were classic antifreeze. She reported it to the police and animal control, but she didn't stop there. One of the vet techs who'd been in the room when Charlie died was so angry she couldn't see straight. This tech, a young woman named Amy who'd gone into veterinary medicine because she loved animals, took it personally. She donated her own time to investigate. She went to Rose's neighborhood, knocked on doors, asked if anyone had security cameras, and she found one. A neighbor 2 houses down had a Ring camera that faced the street, but also caught part of Derek's yard. Amy asked to see the footage from that morning, and there it was, crystal clear. Derek walking to the fence with a container. Derek throwing something over the fence. Derek standing there watching. Derek laughing. The neighbor was horrified. Oh my God, that sweet old lady with the puppy. He killed her dog. Give this to the police right now. The police got the footage. They arrested Derek within 48 hours. And the charges? They weren't playing around. Felony animal cruelty. Because antifreeze poisoning is considered torture. It's slow, it's painful, it's intentional. Suffering. Attempted manslaughter. Because Rose's heart attack was directly caused by Derek's actions. He killed her dog, knowing she was a grieving widow, and it nearly killed her too. Destruction of property. $8,000 in vet bills plus the cost of the puppy. And here's the kicker: burglary. Because reaching over someone's fence and putting something on their property is legally entering that property. Derek had committed burglary to commit murder. The local news got hold of the story. Man poisons widow's therapy puppy ran on every channel. They showed Derek's photo. They interviewed Rose, who could barely get through the interview without crying. They showed pictures of Charlie, this beautiful, innocent puppy who'd done nothing wrong. The community lost their minds. Derek started getting death threats. Hundreds of them. People showing up at his house screaming at him. His employer, a tech company with a morality clause in their contracts, fired him immediately. We cannot employ someone who tortures animals. His landlord evicted him. Turned out the landlord had two golden retrievers and was absolutely horrified by what Derek had done. Get out of my property. I don't rent to monsters. Derek's girlfriend left him. She had a dog, a little terrier she loved more than anything, and she was terrified. If you could do this to a puppy, what would you do to my dog? To me, I don't know you anymore. But the worst, Derek's own mother disowned him. She released a statement to the press: I didn't raise my son to be a monster. What he did is unforgivable. I want nothing to do with him. The trial was a circus. The courtroom was packed with animal advocates, people from Rose's community, people who just heard the story and were so angry they needed to see justice served. The prosecutor didn't hold back. They showed the security footage of Derek poisoning Charlie. The jury watched him laugh. You could hear people in the courtroom crying. They showed photos from the emergency vet. Charlie seizing. Charlie's little body hooked up to IVs. Charlie dead. On the table, jury members were openly weeping. They showed the footage of Rose collapsing at the vet, of paramedics loading her into an ambulance, of her daughter sobbing in the hospital corridor. The prosecutor stood in front of the jury and said, "This man didn't just kill a puppy. He tortured an innocent animal for barking once. He destroyed a widow's will to live. He almost committed murder through sheer cruelty." And when you watch that video, he's laughing. He enjoyed it. Derek's defense tried to claim it was an accident, that Derek was trying to kill rats and the meat accidentally went over the fence. The prosecutor pulled up Derek's internet search history. How to poison a dog and not get caught to search the day before Charlie died. Derek's own family testified against him. His sister got on the stand and said something that made the whole courtroom go silent. Derek's always been cruel. When we were kids, he'd hurt neighborhood cats. My parents would punish him, and we all thought he'd grow out of it. But he didn't. We just didn't want to see it. And now an innocent puppy is dead because we ignored the signs. The jury deliberated for 23 minutes. 23. That's how clear this case was. They came back with a verdict, guilty on all counts. The judge looked at Derek during sentencing, and you could see the disgust on his face. You are a danger to society. You show no remorse. You tortured an animal for your own amusement and nearly killed an elderly woman in the process. I'm sentencing you to the maximum. 7 years in prison plus a $50,000 fine. 7 years. Derek went white. He'd expected probation, maybe a fine. 7 years. But prison was worse than Derek could have imagined. Because here's what Derek didn't know. Inmates have a code, and animal abusers? They're at the bottom. Lower than thieves, lower than most violent offenders. People who hurt defenseless animals are considered the lowest of the low. Derek was attacked twice in his first month. Once in the cafeteria, another inmate threw boiling water on him. Because I got a dog at home. And you make me sick. Once in the yard, beaten so badly he needed medical attention. The guards put him in protective custody, which meant solitary confinement. For his own safety. 7 years in solitary, alone, no human contact except guards. 23 hours a day in a tiny cell. Derek, who'd laughed while poisoning a puppy, now spent every single day alone with his thoughts and his guilt if he even felt any. He came up for parole after 5 years. Rose showed up to the hearing, brought the video. The parole board watched Derek poison Charlie, watched him laugh, and denied parole immediately. You'll serve every single day of your sentence. Derek served all 7 years. When he was finally released, he thought he could start over, get a job, get his life back, move on. But he learned very quickly that some actions follow you forever. While Derek had been in prison, Rose had worked with lawmakers to pass Charlie's Law, a new state statute, making animal cruelty an automatic felony with a minimum 2-year sentence. But the law also created something else, an animal abuser registry. Just like sex offender registries, people convicted of animal cruelty had to register. Their information was public. Their crime was public, forever. Derek's face was on that registry. Convicted of felony animal cruelty, poisoning, anyone could look him up. Any potential employer, landlord, or neighbor could see exactly what he'd done. The law also had restrictions. Derek couldn't live within 1,000 feet of a pet store, veterinary clinic, or animal shelter in their city. That eliminated about 80% of available housing. He couldn't own pets, ever, for life. Derek tried to get a job. Every single offer was rescinded when employers Googled him and found the news articles. Man tortures widow's puppy, his face on every page. The video that had gone viral, 3 million views and counting, showing him poisoning Charlie. He tried to rent an apartment. Every landlord said no. One landlord told him directly, "I have a cat. I will never rent to someone who hurt animals. You're a danger." Derek tried to stay at a homeless shelter. They turned him away. Why? They had a service dog on premises. "We can't risk having you here. What if you hurt our dog?" Derek ended up living in his car. No job, no home, no family. They'd all cut him off. No friends. Completely alone. The life he'd had before, good job, nice apartment, girlfriend, family completely destroyed. All because he'd decided one puppy's bark was worth killing over. Meanwhile, Rose was healing, slowly, painfully, but healing. 6 months after the trial, she got a call from an animal rescue organization. They'd been following her story. They wanted to help. They brought Rose, a 3-year-old golden retriever fully trained as a therapy dog. They'd named him Charlie, too, if Rose wanted to keep the name. Rose broke down crying when she saw him. "I don't deserve this. I couldn't save the first Charlie." The rescue volunteer knelt down beside her. "Charlie would want you to be happy. He saved your life once. Let Charlie to help you keep living it." Rose adopted Charlie too, and something in her heart that had been frozen since the first Charlie died started to thaw. This new Charlie was different, older, already trained, but he had the same sweet golden retriever soul. He laid his head in her lap the first night and looked up at her with those brown eyes. And Rose whispered, "Okay, I'll try." A year later, Rose started volunteering at the animal shelter. It was therapy. She helped other seniors adopt companion animals. She told them about Charlie, about how he'd saved her after her husband died. She cried sometimes, but she smiled more. Rose started something called Charlie's Fund, the charity that helped seniors afford emergency veterinary care, because she never wanted another person to face the choice of whether they could afford to try to save their pet. In the first year, Charlie's fund raised $200,000, saved dozens of pets, gave families more time with the animals they loved. 5 years after Charlie died, Rose testified at the state legislature for Charlie's law. She brought Charlie to with her now a certified therapy dog who'd helped hundreds of people. She told her story, showed the photos of her first Charlie, explained how the law would protect other animals, other families. The bill passed unanimously. Every single legislator voted yes, and Derek watched from prison on the news, saw Rose healthy and strong, with Charlie to by her side, saw the law named after the puppy he'd killed, saw that his cruelty hadn't just destroyed his own life, it had created something good, something that would help animals. Long after he was forgotten, the final scene of this story takes place at a cemetery. Rose visiting her husband's grave, like she does every week. Charlie sits beside her, calm and steady. Rose talks to her husband's headstone. "I brought someone to meet you, honey. His name is Charlie, just like the first one. I'm okay now. I really am. It took a long time, but I'm going to be okay." Charlie licks her hand gently. Rose smiles through tears. The camera pans over, and next to her husband's headstone is a smaller one. It reads, "Charlie, you saved her." And that is what happens when you torture an animal belonging to someone who refuses to let evil win. Derek thought he could kill a puppy and get away with it. He thought a widow would be too broken to fight back. He forgot that grief can turn into rage, and rage can turn into justice. Rose didn't just get Derek sent to prison, she made sure his cruelty meant something. She turned her pain into a law that protects thousands of animals. She honored Charlie by saving others. You know what Grandma always says. The cruelest people are also the stupidest. They think they can hurt the innocent and walk away. But every action has consequences, and sometimes those consequences last a lifetime. Derek is still alive, still on that registry, still living in his car, still alone. He'll be alone for the rest of his life, and Rose, she has Charlie too. Her volunteer work, her charity, and the knowledge that she turned the worst moment of her life into something that helps others. She won, he lost, forever. If this story broke your heart, and then put it back together, I need you to do something for me. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and comment the word Charlie to honor this puppy and every animal that deserves protection. Let's flood these comments with that name. Let's make sure Charlie's story is never forgotten. Grandma's counting on you. Let's honor the good boys and girls who save our lives every single day. Peace, everyone.